a little bit about myself. I work as a backend software engineer at TikTok. I work on the TikTok shop team. We're not too worried about the all the banning stuff going on right now, at least for the next year or so. So yeah, I would still consider TikTok if you're interested in applying. Yeah, I graduated from UT Austin. I studied ECE, so I didn't actually study computer science. And yeah, I actually joined Capital One after graduation, and I know you've seen also worked at Capital One, and I was in their new grad program for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then I eventually made the transition to TikTok. Also post content on YouTube and X stories. If you want to know more about like working at TikTok or just kind of the tech job market and hiring, I've started posting content there. Um, but yeah, now I want to give you guys some actionable advice, hopefully. So yeah, this I just kind of added this all on just for like what the actual I think there's like 12 steps or something. Um, I'm not going to go into all the low level details of all these different steps. I just kind of want to show you that this is like what we're trying to succeed at. So this is kind of like the high level breakdown. I think the most important part I think is step one or two is like getting your resume past this part so that you can actually get an interview. And then obviously the second part is actually passing the interview, which is comes down to the technical skills and kind of some low level tips that I'll hopefully talk about. So we can go to the next slide. So yeah, so as far as actually landing an interview, I added some bullet points here. I think there's one more just to keep me on topic. I think the two main things I want to talk about here is like resume and then referrals. So the resume part, obviously, what does like optimize your resume actually mean? I'm sure all of us have kind of heard, plenty of tips from recruiters or from different resources on what's the best way to go about, the best resume templates and the best practices. I think I'd highly recommend like actually having your resume looked over from a tech recruiter, like someone who does this for a living and is actually going to be like the target audience of who your resume is for. I think having it looked over, by other students or like professors, etc., is valuable as well, just for kind of proofreading. But I highly recommend actually having it looked over by someone who is a recruiter and is the target audience. There are services where you can pay for this, but I wouldn't say this is worth it. You can easily find kind of options who'll do this for free, and I'm more than happy to like help you out. So I won't go too low level into the actual details of this since we're short on time. Um, but yeah, you can go. Oh, sorry, you can go back to the yeah to the previous one. Yeah, and then as far as referrals, so yeah, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with Alex Hormozy. He has these different kind of outreach methods for marketing. We don't have to kind of worry about this, but basically, I would say there's a few different ways you can go about asking referrals. I think one is leveraging the university that you previously work at or the university that you're currently attending. I think this is where I had the most success actually whenever I was interviewing. Um, but yeah, I would definitely leverage yeah, whatever university you go to. Like if you cold message anyone on LinkedIn, just telling them like sending them your resume and telling them why you want to work at the company, like I'd say that's your best success rate at actually getting a referral. Um, and what else do I want to talk about here? Also, code outreach works surprisingly well as well. You'd be surprised. These engineers on LinkedIn, they have like 300 connections. They don't really use it actively. They don't get messages very often. If you send them a cold DM or a cold connection request and just have a note, saying, "Hey, I'm a CS student at this university. Here's my resume. I built a few personal projects." More than likely, they'll be more than happy to kind of help you out and get that referral. And this is really important for getting you past like the initial kind of screening rounds and actually landing you the interview. So I think for me, this is the relatively easier part. I think most people are hopefully able to land interviews if they're trying, if they're really trying hard to, to grind at this and like, send out these messages, apply everywhere, etc. So I think most people are able to do this part. And so yeah, we can go to the coding interview part. So so far as I think there's you can one more slide next. Um, yeah, so this is the part, and then you can go to there's one more. So whenever I was in university, I think this was the part that I struggled with the most. I had like final round interviews with all these big tech companies my senior year, but I actually ended up like failing them all at the on-site stage. Um, so I think this is the part where I think I improved a lot whenever I eventually did get a job at TikTok. So I just have some bullet points here. Obviously, what does like grind lead code actually mean? So some tips that I have is like, well, obviously you want to use all the best resources that everyone recommends, like used something like Blind 75, use Neat Code, watch his videos. I'd also recommend for every leak code problem you solve, I would recommend like on your Mac or on your PC, creating just a file of your source code solution, as well as the time and space complexity, as well as a high level overview of the algorithm that you use to solve the question, and just save that on your local drive. And then every time you kind of revisit this problem, because once you've had a few years of experience, you'll realize the question bank of these interview problems is actually pretty small. So if you just from the start, when you start lead code, you just start building up this question bank, you'll pretty easily be able to kind of see like 90% of the problems and have a really good chance of passing interviews and solving all the classical problems. Um, Also, I failed to mention I have these two resources that I recently posted on X, which have if you want like more specific details, you can feel free to check these out. They're on my GitHub. Um, and Also for system design, but luckily y'all are CS students, so you don't have to worry about system design. I would, yeah, just prioritize lead code, but yeah, that's yeah, be grateful that you don't have to kind of prep for that. And then the last thing I'll talk about is like mock interviews. So yeah, mock interviews like also drastically improved my performance in these big tech company interviews. I think, like I said, when I was in university, I kind of neglected these and didn't really take these as seriously. Like I did a few random interviews on Pramp, but I think whenever I was interviewing about 2 years ago, and I ended up getting offers from a few different companies and joining TikTok, what I did differently was there's this website called interviewing.io, and there's also a few other websites where you can kind of interview with FANG level engineers or engineers at the actual company that you're applying for. Um, and they treat it as if it's like actually an interview for an on-site. And yeah, just replicating that environment as much as you can is probably the most invaluable thing you can do, and probably the best ROI that you can get. So yeah, I'd highly recommend mock interviews. And then spaced repetition, this is a little more nuanced thing. I definitely recommend keeping track of the problems that you've solved, and um, how easy or difficult they are for you to solve, and then adding them to a question bank of questions that you'll come back to. I have a template that I linked in one of the GitHub repos that you can reference. And then obviously tag company questions. If you're interviewing at a smaller company, like obviously you want to do all the tag questions. If you're interviewing somewhere like at Meta or Google or somewhere where there's hundreds of questions, this isn't as relevant. But yeah, I think that's another low level tip. Um, yeah, I was kind of spitballing there for the past like 10 minutes, but hopefully I provided some value. Um, the next slide, I just have kind of my contact information, and more than happy to go to Q&A and yeah, just answer some questions.